HJM Boxing, you already know that. Your host Harley, back again with, of course, another video. And on this video, absolutely massive news in British boxing, shockwaves in UK boxing. And that is Eddie Hearn has reportedly left Sky and joining Dazn, where he signed an exclusive deal where all his fights and fighters, apart from Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte, will be reportedly fighting on the new channel Dazn in the UK. My thoughts on this are, is it that much of a surprise? For a lot of people, it probably isn't a surprise, to be honest with you. He's been with Dazn for a number of years in America, and they've always been talking about going global, and particularly the UK as a market that Dazn were targeting. But for me, I can see it how people see it as a little bit of a surprise, though. And that is because Sky Sports is an established platform in Britain, isn't it? Obviously, you look at the football, Sky Sports News, the football, the channels, they're massive numbers. They do massive numbers in the UK. Huge numbers. Sky Sports News is a massive platform to promote your sport and drive viewership. And that's what they did with the pay-per-view model. And the Sky pay-per-view model, as much as I've disliked it over the years, has been successful. Let's have it right. It's been successful. They've done big numbers on pay-per-view, particularly with the likes of Carl Froch. George Groves sold 80,000 tickets, like Carl likes to suggest, at Wembley. And after that really started the boom after that with Eddie Hearn and Sky Sports. And then the Anthony Joshua fights are really where they cashed in, and where I think for a number of years, Eddie Hearn had a monopoly in the UK. And that was at Wembley Stadium. Obviously, the Klitschko fight where made Anthony Joshua a massive star. And obviously, they fought Povetkin at Wembley, Takam at the Cardiff Stadium, Principality Stadium, the Millennium Stadium where he fought. So they've had a monopoly for a number of years. But the last 18 months, I believe the writing has been on the wall in terms of Eddie Hearn and his relationship with Sky Sports, because you just look at the standard of shows they've put on. It's been very watered down, not good enough. The pay-per-views haven't been good enough either. Everything Anthony Joshua, of course, will be pay-per-view, but Dillian Whyte, a lot of his fights, I don't believe have been pay-per-view quality. I don't believe Dillian Whyte versus another guy for no belt is a pay-per-view fight. And this kind of stuff wasn't happening 3 or 4 years ago. So it just tells you how low the standard has dropped, the watered down the product is. The product has been poor for a long time. The commentary has been poor for a long time. You just have to look on Twitter every time Matthew Macklin opens his mouth, every time Adam Smith opens his mouth, Beanie. You just have to look at the comments. Poor, really poor stuff. And it's every week the commentary gets slated, the production gets slated, and the punditry, Tony Bellew, the mates, all on there. And Sky Sports has been complacent for a good year or 18 months. So I'm not really sad that they're going, or in terms of Eddie Hearn's leaving them, because they haven't produced the content, and the production hasn't been at the standard, I believe. I don't think, and that's a lot to do with Eddie Hearn actually as well, with Matchroom. They haven't invested in British boxing at all for me. They've obviously, you just have to look at the fighters that haven't been on Sky Sports, have been fighting on Dazn. Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders in a couple of months. A lot of UK fighters John Ryder's gone over to Dazn as well and fought in some shows. So a lot of UK-based fighters, obviously AJ as well, fought on a Dazn show in America. So it just tells you where we are with Dazn and in terms of Sky and Eddie Hearn and where they rank with each other. Eddie Hearn hasn't really prioritised the UK market for the last 12, 18 months. That's just being real, isn't it? It's true. He hasn't prioritised the market. A lot of the shows have been poor. The standard on the Saturday night shows have been shocking. There's not been many world title fights on Saturday night shows. Obviously, everyone likes to use the Carl Froch Butte as an example, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. That was a normal Sky show, world title fight. And the standard on Sky pay-per-view has really dropped now. And I think they're looking to really cash in. And I think Sky Sports, to be honest, have really shown they're out of boxing. You just have to look at like I say, the last year in terms of Sky and their output of boxing. It's been very minimal. They haven't really shown the American shows like they used to. They used to show a lot of the Manny Pacquiao fights, a lot of the Floyd Mayweather fights, a lot of PBC stuff. They showed Wilder, they showed Charlo, they showed Errol Spence. They haven't shown any of those fights. They missed out, obviously, which I was absolutely scandalous. I thought the Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko fight, they missed out on that. They didn't show that on Sky Sports. And for supposedly, like Adam Smith likes to say, a channel that's always shown boxing, to not show fights like that really said to me, that was a big red flag for me, that these lot aren't invested in boxing anymore. And I think it's really shown. They didn't show the Charlo Devenchenko fight, Gervonta Davis. They didn't show these big stars in America. They didn't show any of these fights on their platform. So Sky have really shown they're on the back foot but in terms of boxing, they're not really prepared to invest in it. And they're probably not prepared to invest in Eddie Hearn either, because I don't think Eddie Hearn is actually delivering the numbers that he says he is, to be honest, in terms of pay-per-views. I think Anthony Joshua's actually sloped a bit, to be honest with you. I think after the Klitschko fight, I think Eddie Hearn, Sky Sports in particular, would have expected Anthony Joshua's numbers to go upwards. They haven't really gone upwards from that Klitschko fight. He sold 1.5 million views on pay-per-view, which is massive money, of course. And they probably expected the next fights after that, Parker, and they probably expected to see Deontay Wilder fight Anthony Joshua. Never materialised the Wilder fight. And instead, what we saw Wilder fight Tyson Fury on BT Sport and do big numbers. So Sky were probably looking at that saying, this should have been our piece of the cut. We should have been making money on Wilder. Why isn't Eddie Hearn delivering the fights for our platform? So I can easily see why Sky might not want to have kept Eddie Hearn, to be honest, because Eddie Hearn, for his credit, he's a good promoter. We have to say he's one of the top 2-3 promoters in the world, but he has burnt a lot of bridges with a lot of people, you know, in boxing. There's no question about it, especially in America. He's burnt a lot of bridges with, you look at the PBC, you look at Shelley Finkel, Deontay Wilder. I don't think these guys will ever work with Eddie Hearn. Maybe they will, but it doesn't look like they will. You look at Bob Arum, obviously, he's not happy with Eddie Hearn with certain things. And obviously they still haven't announced a Tyson Fury fight, so they've still got to work with each other on that. And so there's a lot of bridges Eddie's burnt with a lot of people in boxing, especially in America with what he's done with Dazn. And yeah, so I can see why Sky maybe want to not be exclusive to him in a sense, but I can also see why they want to be exclusive with Eddie, because they have had a successful relationship. And Eddie has probably the #1 stable in the UK at the moment. Obviously, Frank's got a lot of guys coming up who have potential to be world-class fighters, but at the moment, you probably say the more established names are with Eddie Hearn. But this whole move to DAZN, which will be interesting, is where does this leave Sky Sports in boxing? It's very hard to see where they are in boxing, to be honest with you. There's a few options they could go to, though. I know Sauerland have signed a big deal with Wasserman Boxing, and that's a big promotional outfit. They've got I think they represent a lot of big names in sport, Wasserman, and obviously Sauerland have a stable of fighters, so they got Chris Eubank Jr., so he could be a fighter potentially Sky look to promote and become the new face of boxing, potentially. They may use MTK Global. MTK put on good shows, good fights. The Golden Contract's been very good in boxing, very good in terms of they've shown on IFL TV, on YouTube. It's done good viewership, and it's been a good concept. Maybe stuff like that. Maybe bring prize fighter back, stuff like this. Maybe try a bit more, be more a bit innovative, a bit more different, and try and go back to the old things that used to work for Sky, because like I said, the production's gone downhill with Sky Sports. I was very disappointed when Ringside left Sky Sports, because that was a great show. Back in the day, I used to watch that quite a lot. That was a great boxing channel where they really promoted boxing for an hour on the Sky channel. So they don't really do it anymore with Sky. You don't really see boxing getting as much push, maybe because it isn't on the list of priorities, which I'm saying the priorities will always be football in terms of sports channels, especially in the UK, because football is the #1 sport in the UK. The Premier League is where they get the money and the viewership. So, and that's where the packages are bought, the Sky packages are bought. It's really from the football. So, and the boxing will always be second. So yeah, maybe Sky may try and do something with boxing, maybe lower their input in boxing. Look at MTK. Maybe MTK isn't the promotional they'll go for with the history. I know obviously on Panorama and Daniel Kinahan and stuff like that. Maybe they won't look to MTK, but they've got fighters MTK and they're doing good things in boxing. So if you want to stay in boxing, I think align yourself with MTK and their fighters wouldn't be a bad option for them. Got Wasserman, like I say, Sauerland. Maybe they could look at a PBC, you know, maybe a shock move for Al Heyman, because he's a massive, got massive production in America, got promotional. He's got deals with fighters, big fighters, Jamal Charlo, all the Charlo brothers, Gervonta Davis, Deontay Wilder. They got big names in America PBC assigned to. So maybe, but obviously they haven't got the UK fighters. So maybe if they signed Al Heyman, then maybe work with that, or maybe bring some American fighters to the UK. That'd be brilliant to see. But no, I think they'll lower their. Well, I think with Sky, I think they'll lower their content. To be honest with you, I think the priority for them will be the Premier League, keeping football really, and yeah, if they can show boxing here and there, and like part of the deal, like I said, or what's been mentioned in the deal, that Dylan White and Anthony Joshua aren't part of this deal with DAZN. So maybe these two guys will stay with Sky Sports, and they'll do pay-per-view fights with Dylan White and Anthony Joshua. That'll be their output in terms of boxing. But very interesting times in UK boxing in particularly. And yeah, for Eddie Hearn now with DAZN, maybe he'll look to, obviously he'll have Conor Benn, he'll have Josh Warrington, he'll have fighters that he can sell with Dazn, but obviously with the Dylan White and Joshua stuff, it's a bit more complicated. So we wait and see on that. But Dazn, he's obviously shown his intention with Dazn. If the deal was correct, and he is reportedly, well, I think it must be done. Coppinger's reported it. He's quite a reliable journo in terms of boxing. So yeah, reportedly it's done. And yeah, he'll look to expand that kind of model, video app kind of model on your iPad, your smartphone, etc., on your laptop to be watching boxing. That might be the future streaming. And it probably is the future of boxing. ESPN Plus as well is another one that does the same with sports. And maybe this is the future now, these own apps and things like this to show content and show sport. For me, I think it will be a struggle still in Dazn in the UK, because I still think Sky have a monopoly. So, but maybe Eddie Hearn knows more than what we know, to be fair. Maybe he knows that Dazn are looking to really look to get to Premier League and really get the content off Sky and try and take everything off Sky. Maybe that's what Eddie Hearn's looking at. And obviously he's been up, maybe it's just money, to be fair, money orientated, and Dazn have offered more money and he's thinking that kind of way. But it does show Dazn's intent, to be fair, to reportedly pinch Eddie Hearn from Sky Sports, where he's had a successful relationship. Shows the intent. But I still think Eddie Hearn's got a long way to go in boxing still. I think they talk like Eddie Hearn's conquered boxing. I don't see as he's conquered boxing at all, to be honest with you. I think he's probably the number 1, number 2 promoter in the world at the moment, but he's not the undisputed. He hasn't got Tyson Fury. Bob Aaron's got Tyson Fury. He hasn't got Terence Crawford. He hasn't got Teofimo Lopez. He hasn't got Javonte Davis with PBC Al Heyman. He hasn't got De Wilder. He hasn't got Charlo brothers, Charlo twins even. He hasn't got any of those. So he's still got a long way to go. He hasn't monopolized, and especially in America, he's got a long way to go still. He hasn't dominated America. I don't think Dazn has been as successful as what people make out in America. I think, of course, Canelo was a massive signing for them, for that Hispanic audience, the Mexican audience, Mexican Americans. It's massive numbers. Like I say, they're going to sell Dallas Cowboy Stadium, 70,000 tickets, do big views on Dazn. And Canelo's the main guy, but it ain't cheap to have a Canelo fight. So they're obviously paying Canelo massive money at the same time. So Dazn has still got a long way to go. There was a lot of rumors they've lost money as well during the pandemic. Obviously, being a streaming service that relies on live sport, they would have struggled in the pandemic. So for me, they're still rebuilding, like everyone is from the pandemic. So it's still a lot of interesting things to happen in terms of this story. And obviously, it's not a done deal. It's not official yet, but you think it's done now. I think next month or so we will see the announcement. Eddie Hearn has joined Dazn, and I'm very interested to see how that works in terms of the UK side and of course the American side, because I do think Dazn, to their credit, have done good things in the UK already with what they've shown. Obviously, Luke Campbell Garcia was another fight. They showed at a good time in the UK. They showed about 11, 12 o'clock a.m. in the UK, not the usual 5 a.m. kind of shows. They obviously showed Liam Williams, Andre at the same time, similar time. So they're catering to the UK fans as well in terms of their American content as well and worldwide content. They want to show more of their content at good hours for their world. They're looking to go global, so their worldwide audience as well. I don't think the Canelo fight will be shown at 11, 12 o'clock. I think that'll be at 5 o'clock because they're going to really try and promote in America that fight. So yeah, we wait and see. I think there's, like I say, a long way for Eddie Hearn to go in terms of dominating boxing. I think he's obviously shown his intention. He thinks Dazn is the platform to do it and try and be a Dana White of boxing, like he mentions. I think there's a long way to go in that sense. He's got to sign the bigger fighters. He's got to get all the big fights on his platform and really build a monopoly like Dana White has. And I think that'll take years to do, to be honest with you. But we wait and see. He will believe the first step is with Dazn. Very interested to see how Sky react to it and where that goes with their boxing content. Because let's be real, like I said earlier, their content has been poor for a good year or 18 months. So I'm happy that this deal was broken up, because you could tell it was like a divorced couple living together. That was how it felt, Sky Sports and Eddie Hearn, really. It wasn't the content. They weren't producing the content. It seemed secondary, to be honest, to Dazn. And fair enough, if he's laying all his eggs in Dazn, we can all move on. And hopefully we get more content with boxing, and hopefully Sky actually stick with boxing and produce better shows from off the back of it and get another promoter in. But we wait and see. Obviously, there's not a lot happening in boxing, so this was a massive news during the week, and I suppose in the next couple of weeks it will go on. We've got some big fights. We've got a big fight happening on the weekend, really, in the UK. We've got Navarrete in America, Navarrete Diaz in America. Obviously, the big fight in the UK, which I'll briefly look on now. Denzel Bentley, Felix Cash. I can't wait for this fight. I I think this will be it's a 50-50 on paper. You've got Matchroom, Dazn as well. Matchroom, Queensbury fighting each other. So you've got that rivalry there. And obviously these guys have history. They've sparred each other. It was quite a feisty spar, apparently. My thoughts on this is I think Denzel Bentley will win by knockout. And I hope he does win because I'm a big Denzel Bentley fan. Nothing against Felix Cash. I think he's a good fighter as well in his own right, a good undefeated fighter. But I just think Denzel Bentley is underrated. I think he's got raw ability, and I think he's got good fundamentals, and he's got freakish power. He punches very hard. You just have to look at the way he beat up Mark Heffron, absolutely destroyed him. And I think the guy's on to big things. I think he has potential to go all the way in division, the middleweight division. The potential to go to that world level, definitely European level. And obviously, if he can defend his British and win a Commonwealth, that will probably be the next step, logical step, going European and then go for the world. So I think Denzel Bentley will win by knockout in that fight. I think it's a great fight on BT Sport. And like I say, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn hasn't dominated UK boxing yet. Frank Warren is still producing fights and still hanging in there. And you can't write off Frank Warren. This is a good fight Saturday, a good 50-50 domestic fight. And these are the fights I like to see in boxing. So I applaud Frank Warren, and he continues to put on these type of fights. Anthony Yard, Lyndon Arthur, Dubois, Joyce, these kind of 50-50 fights, and he's putting his prospects in tough fights. Sonny Edwards against Mafalani for the flyweight title. That's a tough fight for Sonny Edwards. So he's continuing to put on good fights, Frank Warren, and he will survive in boxing. Frank Warren is a guy that will never die in boxing. He'll probably end up dying before he finishes working in boxing. That's how committed that guy is to boxing. He's got tremendous work rate in boxing. He's put on show after show. He's been bankrupt many times, and he's come back. So Eddie Hearn still hasn't defeated him yet. He's probably in the number one position, to be fair, but he hasn't defeated Frank Warren yet. Frank Warren's still in there. So a lot still to do in the UK, a lot still to do in America. And yeah, we look forward to seeing that story. Big fight this weekend. Like I say, Felix Cash, Denzel Bentley, Felix Cash, big fight the weekend I'll be watching. Got Navarrete, Diaz in the States, and you've got a massive fight in UFC, which of course to be fair, I'm a big MMA fan as well as my boxing, not obviously related to the boxing, but you've got a big fight in the UFC. You've got Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal, and I think that's the fight of the weekend, to be honest, for most people in terms of fight fans, boxing, MMA, that is the fight. It'll be great. It's a sold out Miami. It's in Miami, Florida. They've sold out the state, sold out the arena, 20,000 people. Great to see full crowds back in America. And obviously we've got full crowds in a couple of weeks for the massive fight on the zone, Canelo, Saunders, which we will be breaking down on this channel. We will be talking about that. I'm going to hopefully get some more guests on to talk about these fights coming up. Taylor Ramirez, of course, as well. Hopefully the Fury Joshua fight will be announced. They've talked about it enough, haven't they? So we hope that will be announced. And yeah, we'll be talking about Canelo, Saunders. Don't get that wrong. We'll be on that fully. We'll get everyone talking about that. We'll get guys on to talk about it as well. Hopefully get some more guests on as well to talk about their careers, interviews on. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff still going on with the channel. So yeah, keep tuned, guys. I'll keep producing content as much as I can. And yeah, follow, comment below, of course. Subscribe, follow on Instagram, HJM Boxing, YouTube, HJM Boxing, of course. Subscribe, like, share, do everything, please. All of this is appreciated. Every word you spread, every person you tell about my channel, it's all appreciated, it's all loved. And yeah, we keep building, we keep expanding, hopefully. And God bless. And I thank all of you guys for supporting the channel and yeah, sharing my content out there. All right, people, take it easy. HJM Boxing, I'm out.